President Joe Biden's nominee for the Federal Reserve Board is being rejected by Senator Joe Manchin. In fact, he is going along with the Republicans in the Senate to share his objections to this nominee. And if she were confirmed, she would essentially serve as the top cop for banks within the Federal Reserve. Now, why is it that Manchin is against her? Well, his own greed and corruption, there's no question about that. So let me give you all the details here. The woman in question, Sarah Bloom Raskin, apparently has a history of looking into how the climate emergency is impacting our economy. She has also previously written op-eds where she called on the Federal Reserve to stop providing loans to fossil fuel companies. And guess what? Joe Manchin doesn't like that because he makes quite a bit of money from the fossil fuel industry. In fact, he makes $500,000 a year off of a coal company known as Systems, which he is a part owner of. Now, with that said, here's what Manchin is saying. Manchin, a West Virginian who has close ties to the fossil fuel industry and has rejected much of Biden's climate agenda, cited her statements on climate and energy policy and pointedly noted that the board, quote, is not an institution that should politicize its critical decisions. Yeah, don't politicize any of your political decisions. Your decisions should be determined for you by corporate donors and by your own personal financial motives, like is the case with me. That's what Manchin's saying. He also says her previous public statements have failed to satisfactorily address my concerns about the critical importance of financing an all of the above energy policy to meet our nation's critical energy needs. I have come to the conclusion that I am unable to support her nomination to serve as a member of the Federal Reserve Board. So look, Manchin isn't hiding his reasons. He is being very blunt here. He is telling you, I don't like what she had to say about the climate emergency and how it's impacting the economy. It threatens my own personal profits, and so I'm against it. Now, there are some issues in her history, though. Manchin notably did not cite those issues.
Yeah.
I will get to that later, Cenk.
Okay, so those issues have absolutely nothing with why she's being voted down. In fact, it might have been the only thing that might have saved her, but as it turned out, it didn't. So, to the heart of the issue, Joe Manchin says, look, I don't want you to politicize this position. That is why I'm politicizing it first. Since I don't agree with your political positions, I'm gonna make sure you're not allowed on the board. I only want people on the board that agrees with my political positions and also my financial positions. If you don't help me with my corruption, you're not gonna get that position. It's brazen. She is concerned about climate change. So is 89% of the world. And Manchin's like, no, I don't want any reasonable human being. I don't want anyone who believes all of the scientists in the world. I only want someone who will raise their hand and say, I swear to God, I will help Joe Manchin in his corruption. I will continue fossil fuel subsidies. They're the most profitable companies in the world. What do they need subsidies for? Well, Joe Manchin needs more money to stuff into his pig mouth.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
In fact, he said, let me give you this quote, this is graphic 3. The Federal Reserve Board must remain hyper-focused on ending the inflation taxes hurting working families, he means oil companies and fossil fuel companies, and getting more workers off the sidelines and back into the economy. He wants to repeal certain taxes.
Yeah,
that's his number one priority here.
It does. So the most important part of this story is not Sarah Bloom Raskin or the Federal Reserve Board. It's that Joe Manchin is the president. So George W. Bush had a funny line. He's like, if my job had a title, it'd be decision maker, right? Well, your job does have a title, it's president and commander in chief. But it goes to the point of, well, the president is the one who makes the decisions. Well, who's making the decisions in Washington? Let's be honest. It's clearly Joe Manchin. It is not Joe Biden. So Joe Biden has handed his presidency to Joe Manchin. And when I point out that obvious fact, anybody watching now goes, well, that's obviously true. Joe Biden wanted Sarah Bloom Raskin and Joe Manchin didn't. So who won? It looks like Joe Manchin won. Well, Joe Biden wanted Build Back Better so much, he named it after his own campaign pledge slogan. So Joe Biden wanted it, Manchin didn't. Who won? Joe Biden wanted voting rights, Joe Manchin didn't. Who won? Who's president? Joe Manchin's president. Why? because Joe Biden let him be president.
That's right.
And whenever I mention these things on social media, you get all the ass kissers who come out there and go, oh, there's nothing he could do. Jake, I swear. You know the count? You know that the Senate's only 50 Democrats? Oh, you children, you sad, sad children. So you think politics is only about, oh, well, I guess they voted that way. There's nothing I could do. What a bunch of losers. If LBJ had done that, we wouldn't have the Civil Rights Act, we wouldn't have the Voting Rights Act. Oh, well, I guess I don't have enough votes in the Senate or the House. LBJ didn't have anywhere near the votes. He had to get a mountain of votes to get past the filibuster to get those. FDR, he had to get past an unbelievable fight to get Social Security. And in that fight, he called out one person after another after another. But these losers today would be like, well, I guess FDR doesn't have the votes. I guess we're not getting Social Security. I mean, what do you want us to do, fight for it? You incompetent fools. Yes, in politics, you're supposed to fight for it. You're supposed to use carrots and sticks. Now, I know you have sticks because you use them against progressives all the time. Like if you're in a primary against progressives, oh, that guy might be gay. Oh, that guy's, oh yeah, I heard he's hitting on someone.
They'll pull all sorts of tricks out of their little hat.
Yeah.
All sorts of tricks, all sorts of smears, all sorts of opposition research campaigns. They will fight aggressively. It's not like Democrats don't have it in them. But look, we know what the reality is. Democrats are paid to lose on bread and butter issues.
Paid to lose.
They're paid to lose. Stop believing that it's because they're weak, which in some areas they're definitely just weak, feckless, pathetic lawmakers. But they're also just paid to lose, right? So rhetorically, they will, message to the American people that they care about these bread and butter issues. They'll promise you the moon and the stars while they're campaigning. But then they'll turn around and they'll abandon you. Why do they do it? Because they're paid to lose on the very policies that they claim to be in favor of. And then once election season comes around, how do they campaign? What do they do? Oh, you gotta vote for us, because if you don't vote for, you gotta elect more of us. If you elect more of us, then maybe we'll do something. Even though during the Obama administration, not only did they have the executive branch, they also had a super majority of Democrats in Congress, and they couldn't even get a public option passed with Obama's signature Affordable Care Act.
Oh.
They're feckless and they're corrupt. Those are the two defining words, okay? Descriptions for the Democratic Party. It's just the truth of the matter.
And Joe Biden, I mean, on domestic policy, he seems pathetically weak. Like he can't get out of bed, he's so freaking weak. I mean, what would I do about Manchin? I don't know. Have you tried one thing? Has Joe Biden tried one thing in doing something about Joe Manchin? And I was promised, not just by mainline Democrats, I was promised by so-called progressive leadership that we should trust Joe Biden. That Joe Biden was a political genius. My God, does he know how to move the Senate? Well, they appear entirely unmoved. There is no question that Joe Biden is a massive failure on domestic policy. Now, what's weird is Joe Biden is incredibly strong in foreign policy.
Some areas, yes.
Yeah, on Ukraine, he's been terrific. And you've seen us say that because we're not biased. We just call it as it is based on the facts. He's struck an amazing balance, showed incredible strength against Putin, done a wonderful job of uniting our allies. Why am I telling you that now? Because apparently he does know how to be strong.
Yep.
But yet, all of Manchin knocks down $15 minimum wage, child tax credit, lower drug prices, and all the way down the list. Sarah Bloom Raskin wants to regulate the big banks and wants to do something about climate change. All of a sudden, Joe Biden can't find his slippers to get out of bed. Golly gee, I'm so weak. There's nothing I could do.
What's notable to me is that for Joe Manchin, her work on and her op-eds regarding climate change is what he decided to cite. That is what he believes is the most problematic element of her history. But there are actually other issues that he did not cite, that he did not find problematic. Because these are issues that he is in favor of. These are things that he loves, and it has to do with that revolving door. It has to do with the close ties between the political world and the corporate world. So I want to go to graphic 4 and 5 here, where the New York Times reported that Raskin served time on the board of directors for this financial technology firm called Reserve Trust, which secured a coveted account with the Federal Reserve, giving it access to services that it now prominently advertises after Raskin reportedly called a central bank official to intervene on its behalf. That's a problem. That's a huge conflict of interest. Notably, Manchin didn't mention that. He has no problem with that. Those conflicts of interest, he loves it. He has his own conflicts of interest. The episode has raised questions because she previously worked at the Fed and because she made about $1.5 million from the stock she was given for her Reserve Trust work.
So she should answer those questions. It's unacceptable that she's not answering them. So they can say, hey, look, we're not getting a fair shake. That's absolutely true. But if you answer those satisfactorily, then we would fight even harder for you. But it doesn't really matter, guys, because that was actually the one thing that was to her benefit in the Senate.
For these senators, yes, because they love the corruption.
Yeah, the senators are like, oh, I guess they didn't really believe she was corrupt. Because if they thought she was really corrupt, they would have confirmed her right away, right? They'd be like, oh, then we'll just tell her to be in favor of oil and she'll be in favor of oil.
She's one of us.
Yeah, there's no question they think she is not at all corrupt. Otherwise, she would have flown through the Senate. And by the way, of course, as usual, every Republican is corrupt. Every Republican says, no way, our beloved oil companies destroying the planet but giving us donations. We will protect them. And plus, the Republicans are even more furious that she liked to regulate banks. She's at the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is supposed to regulate the banks. They're like, you better not. You're just supposed to print the money and give it to our donors, okay? So the Republicans, as usual, 100% corrupt. And the Democrats go, oh, I guess there was nothing we could do about their corruption. Oh, did I take money from the same exact campaign donors? Golly gee, make sure you listen to mainstream media telling you that has nothing to do with our decisions. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.